I'm Sharon.
I'm Colin. We have been fostering for just coming up on 32 years, and we have had around 28 children within our care.
It's been short-term, long-term, and some emergency placements.
Yes, but a lot of our children have stayed with us until adulthood, until they went on to independent living or semi-independent living. Some children went back to their birth family, back to their own family, and some children moved on to other carers.
We had 2 children of our own, and they were at the time 3 and 6. And we decided we didn't want any more children. And instead we would think about fostering. And a friend of ours from our local church actually came and said, Sharon and Colin, you would be, see the advert for Barnardo's. Are you interested? And actually, funny enough, we had been thinking about it. So we went along to the information evening, and again we had all these questions, thinking some of these questions are really stupid, but we needed to know answers, and we got some of the answers, and then we went forward to the where they would come out, and I think it took 9 weeks of an assessment, and we asked loads and loads of questions, all the worries about how would our children feel, what support services there are, what type of children that we would have, would it be long term, short term? So we asked all the questions there was, and there was still some more.
Yeah, and we did speak to our own children about it, even though they were very young. But as a family, we felt it was good to include them into what was going on and what was happening. And even when we did get to the point where we were having a child come to our house, we sat them down and we said, if ever you feel that we're leaving you out or we're spending too much time with foster children, come and talk to us, because that's not our intention, and let us know. And even at that young age, they did do that. They would have come up on occasion and say they were felt a bit left out of things, but there was a lot of focus on the foster child, which can happen at the very start because they're settling in, they need a lot of attention, they need a lot of calming down and settling down.
I know our older daughter was jealous, and she would have came and said, Mum, why are you spent more time? I need to talk to you. Things like, she was only 6. She was just young. And so what we did, we divided ourselves in half. And one of us would be with our own children, and one of us would be with the child that needed the help. And then we would switch, so they always had our sort of company.
I think what we get out of fostering is, when you see a child coming along who's distressed, who's disorientated, who's got perhaps some behavioural problems because of experiences that they've had, and you can bring that child in, give them a loving, caring home, see them settle down, see their behaviours change, and see them feeling, loved and wanted. And I think the one thing that we talk about quite a bit was one of the children that we had who was severely disabled. We were told she can't smile, she can't talk, she can't communicate, she just understands the tone of your voice. And the first day she smiled, we were in tears. Because, and this was years, before she did, just to see that smile on a child that you were told couldn't smile, it gives us such a lift and such a boost. And when we see the children, and some of our children have moved on, they're settled in as adults now, and we've still contact with them, and we see how well they're doing and what they're doing in life. That's what we get out of it. It gives us such a lift.
Well, it's a two-way street, fostering, and what we get from it is watching a child grow in self-esteem. And from this shy little person that comes in, or teenager that comes in and doesn't want to look at you, is frightened, doesn't know the rules, or saying, where's my bedroom, what am I supposed to do? And they've lost their toys, and they've lost their family, they've lost their schools, they've lost their pets, they've lost so much, and they're coming into this environment where it's strange. And actually, we get something from, because we're proud of ourselves for providing something for the children and making them happy, and then that makes us happy, because I think fostering is a two-way street. It's not a goody two-shoes thing where you say, oh, I'm brilliant, I'm wonderful. It's actually, we get as much from it, and our children are caring, kind, compassionate girls and son, and I think that makes a huge difference. But also, every foster care comes from a different background, and Colin and I didn't exactly have the best of backgrounds. Our parents made the best of it, so we kind of understand where they're coming from. When we took on T, and he was only 16 months old, and he just came into our home, and he was just smiling, couldn't talk but was smiling, and he smiled at everybody, and we just fell in love with him. And he decided to, he was still, at that point, he was moving back home. And weeks went on, months went on, and we were only supposed to have him for a few weeks, and he stayed longer and longer. And then eventually they decided that he would be up for adoption. And at that point, we thought, we can't lose him. We were, even the thought of it was sending both of us into tears, because just imagine this. I mean, he was probably about 3, I think, when that decision was made. So you could just imagine us looking at his wee face, and he settled in with his family, with our daughters and granddaughters and grandsons, and he was just so much integrated into our family that we thought, we can't lose him. And even our daughter says, Mum, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it. So we started the process, and
that was 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
But he just fitted. It was as if he was. It was a straight his personality, and he just as if he had always been in our family. He just felt like one of us, and from the word go. And he's such a nice young lad. And everybody loves him, no matter where he goes, whether it's in school or clubs.
He still smiles.
He just smiles all the time, and he's always happy, and he's so caring to other people. And we still foster. We still have foster children, and he's so good with them because he understands, where they're coming from, and he's very good at relating to them and helping them. I would say over the years, been many of the children we would love to have adopted, but not all children are up for adoption. No, there has to be a freeing order. They have to come to a decision at some point to say, there's no chance of this child ever going home. And then they look at adoption at that point. We feel it's very important that he does know his background. He does know he's adopted. It's not something you discuss all the time, but he's well aware that he's adopted. And he does see his birth mother, on an annual basis. And it's good to have that in place, that children should never lose their identity, because that's part of their identity. And it's our past that makes us who we are. And that has a big impact on children. So it's good that they understand their past.
And he feels comfortable then, because he can talk to us about her, and he knows that we're not trying to rewrite history. Adoption has made a huge difference in our lives, because with fostering, you have to go to social workers and get forms signed, and if they want to go on a school out, and you have to get that signed. And now it's getting better, but still, we have no legal rights at all as foster carers. But as adopted parents, we are his legal parents. If he goes up to hospital, and he needs something, we can sign. If he goes on a school trip or an overnight, we don't have to worry about any of that, because legally we're responsible. And I think that's the hard thing to get your head around with fostering. But with adoption, it just makes it easier. And as I say, T knows his history. We talk about it, so we just love him for who he is.
I think adopting a child with our family, it's really just from our perspective, it's enhanced our family. It's brought a whole different aspect to it. It's now we have this bigger family, and this young lad who's came in, and he just brightened the whole place up. And it's just this ray of light. I think even his teachers will say that when he walks into the classroom, the room lights up as soon as he walks through the door, because he's this big smile. And just to have a young lad like that within your life. Our own girls are now in their 30s. And just to have a young child back in the family again, and it gives you a whole new lease of life. It makes you feel a lot younger.
It's also funny because our grandsons are 16 and nearly 18. Well, he's their uncle. And that does not go down too well.
And he reminds them all the time. I have to tell you what to do because I'm your uncle, and he's half the size of them. There's always an impact when you bring in a new child in, whether it's a foster child or you're adopting. It can be a good impact. There could be a slight negative impact from the point of view that there's a new person coming into the dynamics of your family. And you adapt, you have to adapt. You're going to bring a child in. You don't expect the child to adapt to you completely. you know, they will have to adapt to a certain degree, but you also have to adapt as a family. So you have to change the dynamics of the family slightly, but it's something that happens naturally. You know, it's not as if it's a big shock or, oh, I don't want to do this, or I can't do that. You know, you get to know each other, you get to know each other's personalities, you get to balance each other out, and you sort of all change slightly to fit in with each other. So there is a bit of a change there, but it's no different to, you know, if you had a nephew or a niece or somebody who was coming along, you know, to stay for a while, you adapt what you do within the house to suit. If they were only going to stay for a month or something like that as a visitor, everybody adapts. So it's a natural progress, a natural thing that happens. It's just on a different level because this child's coming in as an adoptive child to live with you permanently.
But when a new person comes in, it does impact. And it's not maybe or if, it does. Because some of the children, some of their behaviours are quite challenging. And if it doesn't work with you, then they'll move on to the child and the family. And that's really, really hard to watch actually when when someone is hitting or picking on your son or your grandson, or, you know, and you just have to, so you have to adapt that. But I think as long as you're open with the children, your children, and open with the foster child or adopted child, then it works. Because, you know, we say, hold on, you're not doing that, that's not all. You know, you would not be happy if he did that to you, so don't do it to him, you know. That sort of thing. But it does, and sometimes it's not, you know, you can't go in with rose-tinted glasses because it's hard at times and it's challenging. Sometimes there are really happy times, and sometimes there are times where you just feel as if you could just collapse in tears, you know, or because it can be so frustrating and takes up a huge amount of energy just to get these children past the difficulties that they've had in their life.
Yeah, I think for us, you know, over the years when we were dealing with it, we sort of try to focus on the fact that there's a child there who's just crying out, and this is just how they express themselves, and always keeping that focus, because you can sometimes get tied up with the behaviours and get, how do I deal with it? But always remember, it's a child who's struggling inside, and it's just getting their personality and getting them to feel settled and feel relaxed, and working, not accepting the behaviours, but understanding them and getting a grip of what's going on, really.
But I mean, our family works as a pod, you know, where you've got our daughters and our grandchildren, and they, you know, they're able to go and have a wee day out with them and do different things. But everybody kind of takes on the parenting to a certain degree, you know, depending on the circumstances, and everybody supports each other, and I think that makes the difference. That's how you can do it.
And you know they've settled in whenever you go to a wee sick. This was last week. A wee 6-year-old said, will you go and tidy your room? And he turns around and says, and will you kiss my bum? And walks off.